Yeah.
Good morning. Good to have you with us on a Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your week with us. Well, it is shaping up to be another big week for President Trump and his global trade war. Levies on almost every U.S. trading partner are set to come into effect this Thursday after the president formalized those tariffs late last week.
Those new tariffs come amid signs the U.S. jobs market is rapidly weakening. On Friday, we learned the U.S. economy added 73,000 jobs in July. That number far lower than expected. And the numbers for June and May were also revised sharply lower, down by a combined 258,000 from what was previously announced. Hours after those numbers were released, President Trump fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Eric McIntyre. He accused her of being a political appointee who was manipulating the data, but he did not provide any evidence of that, and days later still has not provided any evidence. The director of the White House National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, defended the dismissal yesterday on Meet the Press. Here's the show's moderator, Kristen Welker.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke to Kevin Hassett, director of the White House National Economic Council, about the president's decision to fire the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner after a weak jobs report. So is the president prepared to fire anyone who reports data that he disagrees with?
No, absolutely not. The president wants his own people there so that when we see the numbers, they're more transparent and more reliable. And if there are big changes and big revisions, we expect more big revisions for the jobs data in September, for example, then we want to know why. We want people to explain it to us.
All right, but bottom line, were the numbers wrong? Do you have any hard evidence that you can present to the American public that these numbers, these revisions that were reported, and there were plenty of revisions under former President Biden, including right before the election, do you have any hard evidence that these numbers were wrong?
Yeah, there is very hard evidence that we're looking at the biggest revision since 1968.
Are you going to present that evidence?
If you look at the number itself, it is the evidence.
But you're saying it's an outlier, it's not evidence, Mr. Hassett.
It's a historically important outlier. It's something that's unprecedented.
Still
so unprecedented
it's still
that
not
I've been looking at it
though.
for 40 years, and I'm like, it must be a typo.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much. Here to talk more about all this, Investopedia's editor-in-chief, Caleb Silver. So, Caleb, you were with us Friday morning when these announcements came out, when the revisions came out, and you made note of it right away. Help us understand how these revisions work. Have we seen big revisions like this historically?
Yeah, but you have to go outside of any recessionary period to find a revision this big. Got to go all the way back to 1968. We always have revisions. The data has always been not exact. And part of the reason is the way it's collected. These are household surveys or they're establishment surveys. In other words, the BLS will call or reach out to businesses and say, are you hiring? Are you not hiring? How many people have you hired? Or they'll call households and say, are you working? How many people in your house are looking for a job? That's pretty inexact. And the response rate has been drifting lower for decades now. Fewer and fewer people are actually responding to the BLS. So the data is not exact to begin with, but the revisions of this size tell you we were looking at bad data for a very long time here. So not surprising that there's so much interest and anxiety over this one.
So as we were just discussing, after this came out, the president fired the BLS commissioner following that release of the report. And then also we saw this negative reaction in financial markets on Friday. Help us understand just how negative it was and how things are shaping up today.
Yeah, it's about trust. And I think that's what participants in the capital markets want. At the very least, we have to be able to trust the data. We have to be able to trust our government officials and be able to trust what we're looking at because businesses make decisions based on these numbers. So you saw a big sell-off in the stock market on Friday, climbing back a little bit this morning as we go into the Monday trade. So much in front of us, though, this week. What a massive week. So it's about that erosion of trust. And then you also saw one of the Fed governors resigning last week on Friday as well, opening up a new spot for a potential replacement for Chair Powell when his term expires next May. A lot of intrigue and a lot of moving chairs and parts right now in Washington that affect the economy and the way we perceive and trust our capital markets.
You mentioned this is a big week ahead, and one of the reasons why is these tariffs finally go into effect on so many nations. Tell us, how could these tariffs then affect the jobs market?
Yeah, well, we're going to finally see the impact and whether or not these prices are being collected by the retailers and the businesses that are bringing in the product or the countries that are sending it to us are paying it, or whether we're going to pay it. And this is the very beginning of that process that we've been waiting for since so-called Liberation Day. So what you can expect is if those prices are passed through, and some of them will, companies like Walmart are promising we're going to have to pay for it too, then we're going to see a slowdown in spending. probably a slowdown in hiring and potentially a slowdown in the economy. Depends on how bad it is and the level of the tariffs. But right now, that's what we're expecting. More money out of our pockets to pay for this. And eventually that affects how much we spend when we go out and shop.
So it seems like part of the irony, part of the confusion here is that the president has made very clear he wants those interest rates to come down. Wouldn't the Fed need something like this, some indication that there's something up with the economy to make cutting those interest rates the decision? Do you think that means that there is a chance we see that happen this fall?
Yeah, and the chances of the percentage probability went from about 40% to about 75% on Friday after those big revisions. And I told you, if Chair Powell and the Fed had seen these numbers, they might have thought about that quarter-point cut last week, but this was all in hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking. We know the labor market is much weaker than we thought it was. The question is, what's going to happen to the rest of the economy and to spending and inflation with these tariffs coming into place?
And a reminder to folks, if we do see a cut, it will be small, it will be gradual.
Yeah, quarter point maybe in September, another quarter point maybe in December, maybe bigger to get interest rates down to a more normal level. They've been high for a while.
All right, Caleb Silver, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Well, for more on how the Trump administration is framing these jobs numbers, let's bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. He's in Washington. Gabe, good morning. So what is the president saying about who will replace the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and why the public should have confidence in these numbers going forward?
Hi there, Savannah. Good morning. Well, the president is saying that he'll make the decision about who will replace the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics within the next 3 or 4 days. And the administration officials say that they are very upset with the downward revision of those job numbers. As you were discussing, the president spoke with reporters over the weekend and defended his decision to fire her. Let's listen.
We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3 or 4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous, what she announced, but that was just one negative number. All of the numbers seem to be great, and so we'll see how that comes out. And if you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion.
Now, Savannah, the president providing no specific evidence of how these numbers may have been rigged. It is common practice for the Bureau of Labor Statistics to revise those numbers in future reports. But again, the president says that he will appoint a new head of that division within the next 3 or 4 days.
And Gabe, real quickly, remind us, the jobs report before the election last year was not a good jobs report for President Biden and Vice President Harris, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The president, though, touts job numbers when they are in his favor. Apparently, he was clearly not pleased with the way these came out. This all comes, as he's been discussing, as he rolls out his tariff policies. The president trying to tout the effectiveness of his tariffs, even if inflation has started to tick up a bit and the unemployment is going in the wrong direction just slightly so far, Joe.
All right, Gabe, let's talk about Congress. The Senate left for its month-long August recess on Saturday, and Republicans left something undone. They failed to reach a deal that they hoped would speed up the confirmation process for dozens of the president's nominees. How is President Trump reacting to that? What does it mean for his picks?
Well, Senate Majority Leader John Thune is calling the entire process broken. But yeah, you're right. The Senate departed over the weekend, and about 150 of the president's nominees are in limbo, including former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who is yet to be confirmed as the ambassador to the UN. Former Fox News host Jeanine Pirro, though, she was confirmed as the U.S. Attorney for D.C., but there are many of the president's, dozens and dozens of the president's nominations that have yet to be confirmed, Joe and Savannah.
And Gabe, let's also talk about the latest in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. A couple updates here. Epstein's former girlfriend and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's serving that 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. She was moved to a women's federal prison camp in Texas on Friday. Also, Senate Democrats have set an August 15th deadline for the Justice Department to release more documents here. Tell us just the latest on both those things. Any updates?
Yeah, look, Savannah, this is a story that can't seem to just go away. for the White House. It's now been percolating for the last number of weeks, and the administration, or at least speaking with administration officials, the strategy for trying to deal with this story has been one of silence. Administration officials aren't allowed to speak publicly about the Epstein case without some high-level vetting, according to senior administration officials. But it is often the president himself that ends up adding to the story with several comments. There has been a drip of information that has come out. But again, this is a story that the administration wants to go away, especially as the administration tries to roll out its tariff plan and move on to other stories. Jones Savannah.
All right, Gabe, thank you. And by the way, Gabe, congratulations are in order. Just getting engaged over the weekend. Congrats, Gabe. Great to see.
I appreciate that, Savannah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, moving to Texas now. Dozens of Democratic lawmakers in Texas have fled the state. They're taking a stand against a controversial push from Republicans who want to improve their chances of maintaining power in Congress after next year's midterms. This exodus comes after state Republicans unveiled a new congressional map which aims to add 5 new GOP seats.
Now this sets up a standoff with Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who's threatening to expel the lawmakers from the legislature or even extradite them back to Texas. Democrats say the proposed map is racist and undemocratic.
So by denying the Texas House of Representatives quorum, we are using the power that we have as state legislators under the Texas Constitution to fight for our constituents. And we are all elected to fight for the people we represent. And that's exactly what we are doing here today.
For more on this, we're joined by NBC News senior political reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good to have you with us. So we've been here before. This marks the second time in 4 years that Texas Democrats have taken action to try and break quorum, which is when the State House doesn't have the minimum number of lawmakers needed to do its business. Walk us through how we got to this point, why Democrats are taking such drastic measures right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm old enough to remember when the Texas Democrats did this in 2003, when there was a mid-decade redistricting plan pushed by a Republican congressman named Tom DeLay in Washington to try to create an advantage for Republicans by basically redrawing the districts of the congressional map. This is what's going on again here. Basically President Trump has pushed Texas to try to move some of the lines within the state before the midterm elections to try to elect more Republicans, to try to prevent Democrats from winning control of the House of Representatives in the midterm elections next year. Of note, I think, interestingly, that Texas Democrats have fled this time to Illinois, a state, as you saw in those pictures before, governed by a Democrat, J.B. Pritzker. At least in one past instance, they went to Ardmore, Oklahoma, which was made it a little easier for Texas authorities to try to pursue them.
So the Texas House is scheduled to convene later this afternoon. What does this mean here? Do we think this is just this temporary disruption, or is there a real chance this bill doesn't get passed?
I mean, really, the question here is whether the redistricting will be delayed and how long it'll be delayed, rather than whether it will be denied. I guess there's some conceivable way in which you could see it being pushed back far enough to not, to not go into effect early enough for the midterms. But really what's going on here is that the Texas Democrats are calling attention to what Republicans are doing and trying to force Republicans' hands. We've seen, Texas's governor basically threatening to arrest them, potential criminal charges, talking about them being felons. I'm not sure that there's a felony for going to Illinois, but largely I think you're talking about delay rather than denial.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Texas Democrats are saying moves like this could happen around the country that could set off what some are describing as a redistricting arms race in other states, which could impact next year's midterms. Obviously, there are a lot of states where Republicans have strong majorities. Tell us more how this could play out in other states.
I mean, there could absolutely be an arms race, and I think that that's where we've been headed for a long time. When Texas did this 20 years ago, it was unheard of. But we've seen over time that states have been willing to redistrict in the middle of a decade. The Constitution says that, there's a census every 10 years, and following that census, there's a reapportionment of the House districts among the states, and then there's redistricting. It does not say that you can't do redistricting more often than a decade, and so I think you're likely to see this arms race. And of course, the Democrats' big trump card that they think they have is California, where they can redraw some of the lines.
All right, John Allen, good to have you with us.
Thank you, John.
Thank
well,
you.
this summer's severe weather, it is not going anywhere just yet. In eastern Alabama, at least one person is dead. 2 others were rescued after fast-moving floodwaters from a line of powerful storms swept away 2 cars. A flood watch does remain in effect for the region until tomorrow night, as forecasters call for more strong storms today.
And out west, several massive wildfires have burned tens of thousands of acres, and that's forcing some evacuations as firefighters try to get them under control. Smoke from wildfires burning across Canada, that's creating hazy skies throughout the Midwest, blanketing cities like Minneapolis and Chicago, and bringing concerns over air quality. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is in Chicago with the latest.
Good morning. And Chicago's air quality alert officially expired overnight. But despite that, you can see behind me, there is still some haze as you look toward the Chicago skyline there, as that Canadian wildfire smoke moves through the Midwest and is now heading east. This morning, you have about 10 different states waking up to some sort of air quality alert, this continuing problem reminiscent potentially of what we saw back in 2023 in some areas with those orange skies as the sun comes up. But out west, you're dealing with a completely different issue. Multiple states battling wildfires of their own. In Central California, you have some 40,000 acres being torn through with that fire, injuring 3 and forcing hundreds of evacuations. There's that crazy video of some ranchers trying to scramble and save some of their livestock. Meanwhile, in Arizona, today marks 1 month of that Dragon Bravo fire that's closed down the northern rim of the Grand Canyon. That fire has now become the largest in the United States, burning more than 116,000 acres. That's almost hard to fathom, hard to picture how much that fire has grown. It's only growing. It's still just about 11% contained as firefighters handle that. And then you have another set of fires in Utah, state of emergency in effect in Utah. But over the course of the weekend, we really saw some chaotic weather down in the southeast, specifically Alabama. You had heavy, severe storms coming through, causing some flash flooding. One man who was in a vehicle that got swept away on a road, unfortunately was killed. There's the threat of storms that we are continuing to watch today, as well as the threat for more smoke in the northeast, and of course those raging fires out west. It's a big mess of really dangerous and chaotic weather across the country, guys.
All right, Shaq, thank you so much. Our meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here, continuing to track that extreme weather.
Yeah, she's got your morning news now forecast. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. And it's so funny that Shaq used the word chaotic, because that's what I was thinking this morning. Chaos. I feel like it's week after week with the flooding, now the wildfires, and we're looking at another pretty busy week once again. We're looking at the chance for the southeast, looking at that flood risk. And then as we look towards the upper Midwest into portions of the northeast, we are looking at those smoke-filled skies once again. We're going to see improvement later on in the week there, but at least the beginning of the week, we're dealing with those wildfires, bringing down that smoke. Also looking at the chance for some showers and storms in Texas. There is a front that's kind of draped all the way from Texas to Florida, so we're going to be training storms over that front. We're going to see rainfall rates of 1 to 2 inches in some spots. Let's start with the air quality alerts, because we are looking at alerts stretching from the upper Midwest throughout portions of the northern tier of the Northeast and also New England. You can see smoke as we go throughout the day today. Into tomorrow, you want to limit your time outdoors, close your windows if you can. And this is what it looks like in terms of the forecast, because we're looking at unhealthy conditions. Where you see the red, where you see the orange, that is unhealthy for sensitive groups. So that's a big chunk of the northern tier of the nation, especially in the upper Midwest into New England. And then we have the flood threats. 10 million people impacted. Where you see the green in parts of Georgia, parts of Alabama, into the panhandle of Florida, Atlanta, Macon, Montgomery, Panama City. We're going to see a lot of rain in some spots, and this is why. There's that stationary front I was talking about that's draped from Texas all the way to Florida, and we will see heavy rain falling along that. We're going to see really heavy rainfall rates, saturated grounds. We've had rain falling in that area for some time, and we're going to see it all week long. So especially in those areas and where we have the urban spots, we're going to see some flooding as well.
I know you'll keep an eye on it, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Well, this morning, police in Montana are broadening their search for the suspect accused of fatally shooting 4 people at a bar on Friday. The suspect is identified as Michael Paul Brown, who the state attorney general described as an unstable individual during a news briefing yesterday. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has the latest on the search as police name the 4 victims of that shooting.
The urgent manhunt underway for 45-year-old Michael Brown, accused of killing 4 people in a Montana bar Friday. This map showing part of Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest, closed until further notice, where law enforcement is searching for the suspected killer.
We've got a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge of the area. We've got every cabin, every hunting site that's known up there pinned.
Officials offering a $7,500 reward for any information that could lead to Brown's whereabouts. Officials released this photo Saturday showing Brown nearly naked, saying they now believe he went to another location shortly after the shooting, ditched his clothes, then stole a truck.
At this point, we have every reason to believe the suspect is fully clothed, shoes on his feet, able to get around. We do know the individual had access to firearms. We believe he is probably still armed and dangerous.
You mentioned there is a potential that he could come back to the community.
Well, it's certainly something we have to be worried about, right? I mean, this is an individual who chose at 10:40 in the morning on a weekday to walk into an establishment where he was known, where he likely knew everyone in there, and he opened fire and killed everyone.
Those victims include Daniel Bailey, David Leach, Tony Palm, and Nancy Kelly, a retired nurse who was working at the bar part-time.
She was definitely a people person. She, because it is a small town, she was an oncology nurse. She treated a lot of people.
Brown is no stranger to the small community of Anaconda, an Army veteran known to law enforcement and, according to acquaintances, flagged for mental health concerns. Officials urging residents to remain on high alert. Kathy Park, NBC News.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.